Well guys, after 8 long years of development and redevelopment and obviously 18 years since Prime 3 just about, it's been a very long time and quite honestly one of the most heavily anticipated titles from Nintendo ever. So it feels so strange to be doing yet again another one of these videos, like the third in a row, back to back with Nintendo's recent Switch 2 lineup. But does Metroid Prime 4 finally break Nintendo's high 70s, low 80s curse that they've been having on their recent titles? Which by any means is not bad, but still, it's not quite at the level that people are expecting, and unfortunately, it doesn't. As the time of recording this video, Metroid Prime 4 is sitting at an 80, which is definitely a lot lower than the first 3, with Metroid Prime 1 being a whopping 97, Metroid Prime 2 Echoes 92, and Metroid Prime 3 Corruption a 90, with Beyond sitting 10 points lower than that at an 80. So as far as the Prime games go, it's not really competing well. Now, I do want to remind you guys that an 80 is definitely a good score, but I think for a lot of people it's going to be disappointing, especially in comparison to the other Prime games, and the fact that we've waited so long for this game. A lot of people expected it to be at least high 80s, low 90s, so yeah, this is just right around exactly what I was thinking. I was personally expecting it to be around an 81 or 82 was my final prediction, so I'm pretty much right on the money. So if you've never seen me do a video like this before, I take some of the major reviews and combine all the good and the bad and give you guys just one massive review pool, if that makes sense. So that way you guys have a pretty good idea and summary of what people are thinking about the game. So if you are excited for Metroid Prime 4 and excited for these review summaries, make sure you leave a like and subscribe. We are super close to 380,000 subscribers. Shoot, let's see if we can get it today. You can make it happen by just leaving a like and subscribing. Thank you so much, and let's dive into the reviews. So first off, we have IGN. The first thing they state is that the puzzles and suit upgrades are great, but they're kind of familiar. Most of the upgrades we get in this game are going to be the exact same from the past games, with really no new ones, which is kind of strange. The combat is simple yet very deep, and there's multiple beams returning this time, very similar to the first game, with different elemental properties. And there's also a great lineup of boss battles. I mean, they hype up the boss battles a lot, and it's something that a lot of these reviewers are going to be talking about, which makes me super excited as someone that's a big fan of boss battles. They talk about how the new motorcycle is really cool, but the open world desert is a drag. It feels very similar to that of The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, which is something that we'll talk about again, and it's very similar to that game's Hyrule Field. It's an open area that's completely barren that just connects the worlds together. There's a couple of shrines that pulls inspiration from Breath of the Wild that has some challenges sprinkled in, but for the most part, a majority of this desert is just empty with green crystals that you're forced to find and collect a lot of through your experience, which we'll also talk about here soon. However, the themes of the different worlds are absolutely stunning, with each of them having their own individual story, just like the past games did, and the structure of these worlds are more linear instead of open-ended and kind of based on Metroid Prime 2 and 3's world designs, where they're more self-contained, but the reviewer here says how much this game reminds him of the traditional 3D Zelda dungeons, and even says if you're a fan of classic 3D Zelda before Breath of the Wild, this is the game for you. So, Zelda fans, you heard it here first. IGN's reviewer beat the game with about a 15-hour runtime, so it's about the same as most of the other Prime games. I normally finished 100% completing them in around 13 to 14 hours, and IGN can't stress enough how beautiful this game looks. It's one of the best looking Nintendo games of all time, they state, and it runs perfectly in both modes, whether it be performance or quality. It's just beautiful looking and perfectly running. And it even runs perfectly apparently on Switch 1 hardware for the most part, which is super interesting to hear. So you're not going to be missing out too much for you Switch 1 owners. Of course, the main issue for a lot of people were the Galactic Federation soldiers, which would break the immersion and something that people were really worried about. But IGN states that the companions are not a main part of the game, and you will spend over half of the game alone in isolation still, and they are still tolerable. You know, they're not too bad apparently. I've been hearing from a lot of reviewers that some of them are very good and some of them are very annoying, and I think it's safe to say I can pretty much tell which ones are going to be the annoying ones. Miles and the female seem to be very chatty and annoying and fangirl all the time, while the two older guys, specifically the African-American one being named Duke, seems to be the best out of everybody's reviews. And I was really hurt to hear that Silex feels shoehorned in this game at times, where he just doesn't seem to be that important of an antagonist, and that he's just there and not there nearly enough, which just kind of hurts. I was really hoping for some deep, fleshed out story about him, but it looks like they're just going to kind of leave him up to some mystery still, which I really hope there's something, because why is he even here? IGN states that sometimes it feels like they threw him in simply to tie in that ending from Metroid Prime 3, so hopefully there's more to this character. We're just going to have to wait and find out. Overall, IGN gives the game an 8 out of 10 and says it has some extreme highs but falls short with its open world and also its chatty character dialogue. It's not quite on the level of the past games, but there are some very, very high moments, but also some very, very low moments. There's a lot of 10 out of 10 moments and a lot of 5 out of 10 moments, so it was hard to really see if this game could be better than an 8 out of 10, but the reviewer also states that if it would have came out 3 years after Prime 3, it would have probably have done better, and I can kind of get that considering the fact that we waited as long as we had. Over 18 years, you would expect a lot of new changes and a lot of new cool integrations into Samus and stuff, so I get it. They played it safe. It feels like a Prime game at its core. It feels like a direct follow-up to Prime 3, but that's the thing. It plays it safe, and some of the new things that it tries just doesn't land. Next up, we have Nintendo Life, and they said a lot of the same things. They were overall very positive with the game. They state how it feels like a natural evolution from Corruption, which I just mentioned, how it just flows into this next game. It feels like this game could have came out 15 to 16 years ago and been a great follow-up to Prime 3, which is good to hear for Prime fans for sure. Nintendo Life also praises the graphics and says without a doubt it is the best looking game Nintendo has ever made, and the soundtrack is as good as the original game. Every area having a distinct soundtrack that's really good to listen to. A lot of them just stop moving to listen to the soundtrack. It's so good. And some of the best bosses in the entire series by far, and they state that every single boss is a new boss in this game. There's no returning ones like Kraid, which Kraid never had a Prime debut in the first place, but Ridley does not return in this game either, it seems. The Viola bike controls like a dream, and they're one of the few people that really loves Soul Valley's desert. They said it felt empty at first, but the shrines really helped to open it up a lot more, and they see it as a stroke of genius after completing the game, and they really love this little desert area, which is definitely a conflicting take that I've seen so far in comparison to other reviews. Now, some of the members at Nintendo Life had conflicting opinions with this one, where one loved the sidekicks and were not bothered at all by them, where the others said it was really annoying and he absolutely hated every sidekick for the most part, once again, except for maybe like one or two that were pretty good. And it seems like the main issue with these, or it wasn't really the acting or really the design of them, it was more the direction of the writing for these characters. They were very cliche, very Halo feeling. I kept seeing brought up a lot. We know a lot of past Halo devs worked on this game, so maybe that's where that's coming from. One moment that they said was kind of irritating is Miles McKenzie, of course, pops up with random lines of dialogue for you when you're riding in the desert in certain areas, telling you that you need to return to base for something, or you need to go in a specific area, kind of lightly holding your hand, telling you where you need to go and what you need to do next, which I can see some people really hating that. One reviewer even compares him to Navi from Ocarina of Time, which that's already annoying enough. This game also has some features that are locked behind Amiibo, which is just incredibly stupid. I mean, it's 2025, almost 2026, and we still have Amiibo unlocking specific things with the game. I think both of them are extremely stupid, or all three of them, where if you use the Viola Amiibo, it actually gives you new skins for the bike. If you use the Samus Amiibo, it lets you choose from music to play as you ride. I don't know if it's classic Metroid Prime music or music from the actual Metroid Prime 4 game, but that's something really cool. You get like a radio, but you got to use an Amiibo for it, which is just dumb. And the Silex Amiibo unlocks, get this, the 100% bonus cutscene early. Why would you want to see that early? That tells me that the 100% bonus cutscene isn't anything super important. that's pretty dumb and just literally undermines the whole point of 100%ing the game and getting that reward. I don't like that, and I'm starting to really get sick of Amiibo, honestly. And to 100% the game, it took Nintendo Life around 16 hours, so still right around that 15-16 hour window. Nintendo Life's verdict is they gave the game a 9 out of 10. They had no real complaints outside of some of the chatty sidekicks and the, butting heads between reviewers on some of them liked it, some of them didn't, but for the most part, it has great bosses, great graphics, and an awesome follow-up to Prime 3 being one of the best Prime games for them, at least. Next up, we have GameSpot. They state that some of the psychic abilities are clunky and weird with how they work. For instance, to grab and use a psychic bomb, you have to hold the A button while in morph mode, hop out, switch to your other visor, grab it, and then throw it at whatever you need to throw it at, which does seem like a lot to do to activate one terminal, but they mention how, of course, as you get used to it, it goes by really quickly, and it's not anywhere near of a drag once you start getting used to that. GameSpot started off not really liking the Viola sections and the controls with the bike, but then they grew into it eventually. But they do state and reiterate that that desert is very empty indeed. Samus's silence also felt strange to them, where all the dialogue is just the sidekicks chatting on and on and on, and Samus just doesn't even do anything. In fact, she even lacks the ability to move and show any type of physical acceptance of what she's listening to. She's just kind of standing there like a statue, which is weird. I don't know why they can't allow her just to say a couple of things. Does it really kill her character to speak a little bit? It doesn't have to be other M levels. The worlds all feel like classic Prime, however, lonely, eerie, and silent the way it's supposed to be. Some worlds are extremely story rich as well, which is great to hear, and there is a drastic difficulty spike toward the end of the game, which is interesting. There's also some hand-holding that they mention for some story missions as well, and some main story collectibles, where there's a lot of time the side NPC character like Miles will say, hey, you're forgetting something in this room, and GameSpot thought that they were always talking about side pickups that you can come back for later on, but no, these were actually main story mission collectibles that you needed, which just felt like it was definitely holding your hand at times. Now, this is something that not too many other reviewers talked about, which was strange because it's something that's very vital, I feel like, to this open world. But apparently there's grinding. The green crystals, you actually have to smash a ton of them. Apparently it's a very slow progression bar where you can't even finish the game until you fill that bar. So a lot of people, even playing through the game and smashing a lot of these, still were completely low on that bar and had to spend multiple hours just grinding in the desert at the end of the game, just driving through crystals in order to fill that meter, which does not sound like fun. I really am glad I heard this, so I will spend a lot of time in between each worlds just crashing through crystals because I know how important it is. So it's just something that I'm really trying to bring up to you so you don't have to struggle with that post game just grinding in the desert. That doesn't sound like something that should be in a Metroid game. But there's also no fast travel, meaning there's a lot of driving around for a while, which definitely is going to be tedious for going back to past worlds. You're going to actually have to go there like you do in Ocarina of Time. But also, there's a weird autosave thing, which is also a good warning for you guys, because you know how at the end of Metroid Prime games, or maybe you don't know, it'll tell you that get your preparations ready, you can't go back, this is the last part of the game. And normally when it does this, in all three of the Prime games, you defeat the final boss, the game saves right before then, and you can always go back and backtrack if you reopen that save file before starting a new game plus. Well, in this game, that's not the case. If you go to start that final area and you do accept, you will always be locked out of the rest of the game. And every time you boot up that save file, it will say it's completed. And the only thing you can do is fight the final boss. You'll be locked right into that final boss room. So yes, please do not finish the game unless you are sure that you've collected everything and done everything 100%. And you've just done everything you need to do, because you're not going to be able to go back. And that's going to be very disappointing for a lot of people if they're just saying, hey, I'm going to go back and collect everything after I beat the game. You can't do that. Of course, GameSpot also just praises the graphics and talks about just how beautiful the game looks. There's a couple spots that look a little iffy if you look up close, but for the most part, it is a beautiful looking game that's not going to compete with other consoles, but is definitely going to be one of, if not the best looking Nintendo game to date, which is really good to hear finally giving us a Switch 2 game that feels like a Switch 2 game and looks like a Switch 2 game. But overall, GameSpot's verdict is 8 out of 10, uneven and messy in parts, but some of the best highs in the series. It has a slogged open world, and sidekick missions hold it back from being truly special and harken back to some old tropes that should not be in this game with those sidekicks. For instance, needing another one to help you open a door, or simply needing to revive them if they go down. But overall, this game was a good experience for them. And last but not least, we have Eurogamer. For my fourth pick, I always like to choose a review that takes a different approach and a different score. Eurogamer had one of the lowest scores in impressions with the game. Before I get into the score, let's talk about some of their bullet points here. Lots of parallels to Ocarina of Time. I mean, a ton. They go into how the desert is like Hyrule Field, Viola is like Epona, the final tower is hidden but viewable like Ganon's castle, where you can't access it yet, but you can see it. Miles appearing to talk to you nonstop is like Navi, and each world feeling like big dungeons from that game. It's just straight up Ocarina of Time HD, it feels like, for them. Once again, also complaining about the fact that there's no real new abilities. Most of them, if not all of them, are all returning ones. And Samus is completely quiet and even has less body language now than any past Metroid Prime games, just feeling like a straight statue. It's just weird to them. Eurogamer was not a fan of the desert whatsoever, and even talks about how at times it felt like it was designed and created completely different than the rest of the game. The desert just doesn't feel that exciting and doesn't fit the game at all. Now, if you've ever played a Prime game, at the very end of the game, you have to go back and collect a certain amount of something, whether it be hidden keys or some type of artifacts or energy cells. But this time, I don't know exactly what it is, but it seems to be pretty tedious. They mention it being tedious like the Triforce pieces from Wind Waker, which if you've ever played that's pretty annoying. So I'm not looking forward to that, as that's one of my least favorite parts of the entire Metroid Prime trilogy. And they also talk about how the grinding for crystals at the end of the game just sucks. It's just not fun. And Eurogamer ends it with something that just broke my heart personally. I hate hearing this. It's like two things that I can't stand when it comes to boss battles being poorly executed, which is not the thing here, thankfully, but it's the other thing that I can't stand, is when the ending to a game is just boring and flat and doesn't have any real significance. If you're thinking this is going to be an ending like the end of Donkey Kong Bonanza, well, prepare yourself, because apparently the ending is straightforward and a dull, anticlimactic ending to the game, which, that's just painful to hear. Apparently, there's not going to be any sections that utilize all your abilities or anything like that. It's going to leave you saying, well, that's it, apparently quoted from Eurogamer. So, I don't know what in the world that they did to the ending to mess it up so badly, because Nintendo has been doing really well with the endings of their games recently. I mean, you look at Donkey Kong Bonanza, even Kirby Air Riders, and even Hyrule Warriors all had some really good endings to close out their games, so to see this is just disappointing. The verdict for Eurogamer is it's a solid game, but could have been so much more, and they give it a 3 out of 5 stars, and I believe the written review was a 6 out of 10. So, how do I feel about all of this? Well, watching the previews, I could pretty much tell that this was where the game was headed, that it was going to be a really good game, but still have a lot of issues as well. It seems like the main issues boil down between that open world and the sidekicks. I can tell you right now that the Galactic Federation troopers are not going to bother me whatsoever. I can tell. I love having more characters, and sometimes breaking up that isolation a little bit, adding some more characters around Samus is always something that I enjoy, but that desert does seem to be super barren at times when I'm just watching gameplay clips. I mean, I hope there's a ton of shrines to keep that desert interesting, but man, it really is just a desert wasteland, and I can't believe they couldn't come up with anything more interesting and unique to fill in that desert. And I have a whole video I'm probably going to make on this topic of Nintendo's new takes on these open worlds, like they did with Mario Kart World as well, where they're just not making these worlds feel interesting whatsoever. It's like they're having open worlds for the sake of having open worlds. And I can see why a lot of people are scared for future games, like even the next 3D Mario, to have an open world, just because Nintendo keeps doing stuff like this. But there's a reason why I'm not worried, simply because these open worlds are not the main game. When Nintendo takes their time and focuses an open world as the main game, like they do with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, they do very well. But when it's a side thing, like Mario Kart World's side, free roam open world, or this game's open world, which is a small part of a larger game, it feels like they don't put in enough effort. In my opinion, it's either, put in all the effort or don't do an open world at all. Do I wish the reviews were higher? Absolutely. Do I think they're bad in any means? No, I don't at all. I think they're good, and some of them are great reviews, but some of them seem really low. So it seems like for a lot of people, there's some really high highs and really low lows. But at the end of the day, I do wish this did a lot better after 18 years of a wait. But, what are you going to do? But let me know in the comments down below, are you still excited for this game? I'm still like 9 out of 10 anticipation excited for this game, even after some of the bad reviews, and I can't wait to get my hands on it. But let me know what you think down below. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe to stay up to date on all things Metroid Prime 4 and Nintendo in general, and I hope you all have a blessed day. See ya, guys.